Hello and welcome to the webinar. The topic is harnessing the power of deep observability to drive digital business efficiency and success. We'll be talking with analysts from Gigamon and IDC. We've got a great discussion lined up for you here today. Before we get started, I should mention my name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm serving as the host. We want these events to be educational, and we encourage your questions there in the questions pane of the audience console. We'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the event, so keep those questions coming. I also want to call your attention there to the Handouts tab, where you'll find some excellent resources from Gigamon, so make sure that you check those out. At the end of the webinar, I'll announce the winner of our Amazon $250 gift card prize. If you're watching this on demand or recorded, of course, that drawing would have already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found in the Handouts tab. All right, and with that, I'm excited now to welcome today's expert presenters. They include Martin Crew, who's a Senior Director for Solutions and Partner Technologies at Gigamon, Mark Leary, who's a Research Director for Network Analytics and Automation at IDC, and Michael Trofi, Chief Information Security Officer for the US Holocaust Memorial Museum, and he's our special guest speaker today. With that, I'll hand it first off to Martin. Take it away.
All right. Well, David, thanks for the introduction. We are very happy to be with you today. We are Mark Leary from IDC, Mike Trofi from Trofi Security, and representing one of our joint customers, the Holocaust Museum. And we're going to be talking about observability. But before we get into the meat of things, let me introduce our guests. So, Mike, I think you are the most guest of the guests. So why don't you go first with a quick introduction?
So my name is Mike Trofi. I am the president and founder of Trofi Security. And as you mentioned, one of our key customers that we both deal with is the United States Holocaust Museum. That is where I spend most of my time these days. But we deal with everything from virtual CISO services to security operation type work to pen testing. I mean, the whole gamut of security stuff. But as I said, the museum is our key focus right now, just because of the data they hold. Museum is holding, 1.7 petabytes of single source Holocaust archives from World War II, and it's very important that we protect that. And as you know, there's a lot of adversarial entities out there, a lot of third world nations that want to go after it and wipe that off the map like it never happened. And so it's a very big challenge for us to make sure that data is safe. And observability plays a big role in that.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mark, IDC, I think we know who they are, but could you do quick introductions yourself, please?
Sure. IDC global research firm, and myself, I'm responsible for network observability and automation, work with enterprises, service providers, as well as solution providers like Gigamon, our sponsor today, on developing the technologies that, again, enterprises or service providers can put to use in terms of not only just solidifying their networking environment, but also contributing to the management challenges in other areas of IT, because we all know that, we're all trying to operate IT as a concert these days, not an individual siloed collection of technologies. And that brings together the staff, brings together tools, brings together data. And that's the focus for a lot of my work in observability.
Great, thank you. And I'll quickly introduce myself. So my name is Martin Crew. I'm responsible for solutions marketing at Gigamon. And I've done a lot of work with these two gentlemen, focusing on the topic of today's conversation, which is around observability. So one of the critical things I think we're seeing as an evolution of the entire industry is that as we move to the cloud, particularly the hybrid cloud, and as our perspectives get much more application-centric, maybe rather than the siloed view or the sort of the layered view that we've had historically, the issue of observability across the whole infrastructure, the whole domain, becomes more and more important. We're certainly seeing that with all of our customers. And I think, in the conversation today, we'll see it as a trend across the whole industry. So let's start out with a really basic question. And Mike, if you're okay, I'm going to come to you first, which is, why do you think observability does play such a critical view in the perspective that we have today?
So the biggest issue we've historically have had is the siloed nature of IT, SEC, IT, and the other business organizations, where we all had our own independent data sources, and the data integrity was not there, and we all worked independently. So what observability is doing for us is kind of merging those worlds together. So we all have single focus, we all have a single data of truth that feeds all the other tools we have. And we tend to work more closely in alignment now. So not only are we addressing security issues through observability, but also performance issues through observability. And that's a big benefit for us moving forward.
Yeah. So Mark, as you look across the spectrum of work that you do, what would your answer be to that question about why observability seems to have bubbled up as a really dominant theme in conversations?
Well, I think it's coming from the top down. If I look at CEOs and business priorities they have and the work that IDC does, the survey work that IDC does, customer satisfaction, worker productivity, operational efficiency, innovation, these are all top priorities from a business perspective for the CEO. And so that drives a lot of the activity we're seeing in digital acceleration. And if you go down a level, you go to the CIO and you say, well, what's preventing you from being successful in your digital acceleration? And a lot of times it's about complexity, the costs associated with the infrastructure, obviously operational efficiency of that infrastructure tied very closely to saving money. And in terms of staffing, there's challenges. There's a lot of data that's around. Mike mentioned all the data that's available just presenting to visitors to the museum. But all of that data is highly valuable, needs to be secured, and also needs to be controlled in terms of where it is and who it's provided to and such. So from that perspective, a CIO is very concerned about automating their infrastructure, simplifying things for their staff, getting more out of their staff. Mike mentioned it, getting these silos to work together. You get much more from your staff when they're working as a team, as opposed to each person saying, oh, network is fine, oh, security's fine. Get them working together to talk about the whole infrastructure being fine. And again, the tools, the data that's presented there goes to simplifying things, straightening out not only performance, but also contributing to security, contributing to innovation in terms of you want to roll a new application out onto your network, knowing ahead of time how the network is going to react to that new exchange that's being introduced. Isn't that a great way of understanding just how successful you're going to be in terms of rolling out that new digital application? We all know digital is about being very fast. And as a result, the faster you can innovate, the more reliably you can innovate quickly, the better off you are.
Yeah, I think you both make great points there. I mean, Mike's point about silos, I mean, this feels in some respects, like a discussion happening 20 years ago when we had created silos within the on-premises environment. We've moved to the cloud, so the technology base has changed, but we're really recreating a lot of that same siloed situation. And then to your point, Mark, about levels, I think it's exactly right. I mean, at Gigamon, we feel this all the time. We can talk visibility and monitoring at a certain level in the organization and be really well understood, but you take that to the C-level and they don't want to talk about visibility. They don't want to talk about monitoring. I mean, they want to talk about this top-down perspective. So I think these points are dead on. Let's focus in on the security side of things, because I know, Mike, for you, this is a real sort of critical issue every moment of the day. So what are the expected benefits that you're looking for from observability in terms of security?
So the big benefits is, one, data integrity. So we have a single source of truth feeding all our systems. With that, we can do more automation. So we're heavy into artificial intelligence and machine learning. So a lot of those mundane tasks that we used to throw people at, we can now automate. So we keep the really skilled individuals going after real problems, which is a big benefit of observability. And not only IT SEC, but IT ops or network ops now understands what the real traffic flows are on our network. So when we do tuning and for performance, and that's all through observability, because we can now eliminate rogue traffic that shouldn't be there. So that creates a whole new world for us that we can actually traffic shape our network through observability, which was really hard to do 20 years ago. It's observability is making it easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't heard that phrase before, traffic shape, but I mean, that really does capture the essence of this. I mean, it's this top-down view. You're seeing the applications, you're seeing the traffic that's being generated, and you're really defining what happens on the network on that basis. So, Mark, let me ask you, what are the sort of the key benefits that you would expect one of our joint clients to see from an observability solution like the Gigamon solution?
I think two things. You mentioned it early, Martin, is that it's not only important in terms of having more visibility control over your network. It's about what's flowing across the network and all those connected resources in the network. And Mike mentioned it too, breaking down those silos. So it's not only important that these tools are applied to the network and to make sure that your network is doing its job as best as it can, but also the network is contributing to other areas, contributing to, again, great digital experience for the end client, whether that's a visitor to the Holocaust Museum or it's a worker that's managing all those petabytes of data and trying to secure it and such. So from that perspective, very, very key that the network is not only solidified and providing a useful service to all of the digital infrastructure, but also the information, the packet flows, all of the things that are associated with the network. Packets don't lie. So looking at a threat profiles have certain traffic patterns that are recognizable. So being able to identify those within the network, and then again, working with security tools, providing information and insights to those security tools, a big, big advantage for folks. I can tell you, coming out of the pandemic, as we were doing surveys, one of the number one operational changes that developed as a result of the pandemic was the network ops team and the security ops team working more closely together. People were suddenly pushed out to the remote edges of the network. Suddenly threats were coming. They were accelerating. They were coming from multiple fronts. Suddenly, the attack angle, the attack vectors were increasing exponentially. So from that perspective, the networking and security folks, having them work together provided for a much stronger security posture and a much more, a much faster response time in times of threats developing or, God forbid, threats being active within a network.
Yeah, this is a really interesting point. And we've seen, I suppose, historically now, a very similar thing, that coming out of work from home, coming back to the office, and a lot of organizations thinking about next steps. This is one of the big things that our customers have identified to us. This idea of we need a single source of truth. We need a place we can go to, and the security team and the NetOps team and the DevOps team, because they're coming into the conversation now, they can all see exactly what's happening and they can all be working from the same set of data. So, Michael, with your Trofi security hat on, is that something that you see across your clients as well?
Yeah, we do, and I may have a different take on this, but I'm seeing the security teams drive a lot of this. And we're pulling the IT ops team into the security world, because what we're seeing is that to get the user experience we want, we need to pull in the DevOps guys, we need to pull in the NetOps guys. And it goes back to my comment on traffic shaping, where we see by analyzing through observability how our applications are accessed, we can basically, optimize like our paths through our firewalls. So we can eliminate some of the validations that we do, because we know this is a valid path. We don't have to treat everything as hostile, which was the old way to do it. You didn't trust anything. So now we can traffic shape and give the user that experience they're looking for. And we're working as a team, where we didn't before. It was always us and them. That doesn't happen now, which is a good step forward for the entire industry. I mean, it's good to see that.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think back to one of the earlier comments about the application-centric view of the world, where you're now looking to be very agile, to deploy apps faster. We've got new development models that we've had for a while, the DevOps model. They've, to an extent, been one of these siloed entities. But we're certainly seeing with our customers now that they're being much more embraced by the other parts of the organization. They're no longer these, weird outsiders trying to do this stuff that's going to break the network. They're people that have got intrinsic value, and they've got to be brought into the fold. So we're particularly seeing the security and the NetOps team working closer and closer with them. Mark, from your industry perspective, are you seeing the sort of same trends?
Yeah, we're seeing a wealth of things happening organizationally, not only from the standpoint of equipping groups with the right tools, but also common tools, having them look at, a single source of data and understanding what's going on. And a lot of those tools are related to applications and the digital experience. We're a lot of people have an organizational structure now where they have DevSecOps as one group.
Mhm.
So we have security working very closely with development and with operations across a team. The system reliability engineering folks, the SRE teams, they're increasingly responsible for that digital experience and those applications and how they're operating in the real world of their digital infrastructure. The support desk, which oftentimes is trying to separate out what's an application problem, what's a data access problem, what's a security problem, what's a network problem. Everyone has their own biases when they think, oh, the network's running really slow today. We hear that a lot from folks. But when you drill down, you find out, well, it's the application. Maybe it's the cloud service provider that's not providing the service levels that you're expecting and such. So a wealth of different organizations that are coming together, again, working together more as a team, exchanging the same information, looking at the same things, and also sharing those tools. They may have different views and want to look at particular ways of analyzing things, but the reality is, using those same tools with maybe customized dashboards available to them or open APIs available to them, again, make use of what's available to them. And again, having a common shared view of things, a common shared tool set, that goes a long way to get a lot more out of the staff, solve problems faster, be ready faster, but also get more out of the tools that you're investing in. We see people investing in a lot of tools, 20, 30, 40 tools. And again, the more tools you have, the less you're able to use them truly effectively. So it's good to start streamlining those. And again, getting the more people that are using them, the more effective everyone can be, not just the tool being more effective.
Right. And the tools seeing the same data set. I mean, whether you're using different tools, different views within a single tool, the critical thing is that everyone's looking at the same data. And I think one of the things we've touched on here is that data needs to be comprehensive, not just across the whole infrastructure, but from the top to the bottom of the infrastructure. So I know this is something that IDC's done work on. There's concepts around the next gen of observability, because historically observability was an application-based thing. It was a top-down view using metrics, events, logs, and traces. But there's a feeling that doesn't go far enough. Mike, is that something that you've experienced either at the Holocaust Memorial Museum or with other clients?
Yes, that's what your statement is absolutely true. So historically, each application had its own data set. They didn't always agree. And XAMPP spent a lot of money baselining that data. So it fed all our tools. So now the metrics coming out of them are pretty consistent across the board. So, I mean, we can analyze data quicker now than we did before. We're training the NetOps guys to be security op guys. And so that we're playing nice in the sandbox, as I would say. The opportunity never existed before. So yeah, so historically, it took a lot of staff to manage the old way. Observability is making it easier because we can now automate low-level fruit tasks, where if you didn't have the same data set, you couldn't do that because they would be competing with each other. So that's a big benefit of observability, is the ability to take advantage of AI and machine learning, where that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And moving away from events to traffic flows is a big deal, because events have a lot of false positives in it, right? Where traffic doesn't lie.
And the other thing, obviously, is that with a lot of log-based things in particular, you're looking at historic information. You're not actually looking at what's happened now on the network.
Yeah.
So, Mark, how are you sort of identifying this next generation of observability? Are there particular ways that IDC thinks about it, and what needs to be there to get to that next stage?
Yeah, I think there's a number of key attributes that stand out for us in terms of, having everyone having that same understanding and same processing capabilities. Again, different perspectives on those same processing capabilities and what they need to look at. But again, working together. Data always stands at the top. So you want as much data as possible about, as you said, it's nice to examine things in the past because they may clue you in terms of what happened that was critical a month ago or something. But current conditions are vital, right? And you also have a very widespread view of what's going on. You want to understand, say, bandwidth utilization at the core of the network, for example, on a critical WAN link or to a critical connection to a cloud. But at a highest level, you need to understand the digital experience for the client. That is the ultimate, judgment criteria for any CIO trying to understand IT as a service. I'm providing a service. These are my clients, whether it's a customer, an internal worker, an external partner. Their digital experience is everything. And in this increasingly complex world, what makes up that digital experience, it varies based on exchange, what transaction, what workload they're processing or something, their location, a wealth of different things. And so from that perspective, the infrastructure is a very complex web of different systems and different services that are used at any one moment in time to satisfy the client's demand for a good digital experience. And from that, in that regard, grab any data that you can. And in terms of data sharing, it's critical that these tools make available that the data that's available to everyone, whether it's logs, whether it's telemetry data, whether it's digital experience data, all of those things can be combined effectively and may be used, again, outside of kind of normal thinking about, well, digital experience is an application manager's concern. Well, no, it's a network concern. It's a security concern. It's concern across the wealth because it is the client experience. And IT is in the business of servicing the client. And increasingly, that client is an external customer or external business partner. So from that perspective, you need all kinds of data, sharing that data across the tools, having your team look at that one set of data. Again, they may only peer at a certain section of it, or they may be looking at different correlations or different anomalies or something because of their expertise and where they're coming from. But the reality is that single source provides a wealth of information on an ongoing basis. And we talk about past, we talk about current, and even better, trend line. Where are we moving to? What is that data indicating where we're going? How are our resources being used? How are they not being used? What's at its breaking point? What's approaching a breaking point? When is it time to upgrade? When is it time to, absorb that risk? Those are all decisions that you need to make forward looking, because avoiding problems, innovating with your digital infrastructure, these are all things that are outward looking in terms of time, not necessarily based around current conditions, and certainly not generally based on the distant past.
Yeah, no, for sure. So while we've been talking, we've got a good response from the audience. There's a couple of really great questions have come in. Mike, first one I'm going to put to you, and then it can come back to you, Mark. But this is a real good question at a sort of a practitioner level. So we've been talking, obviously, at fairly high level about observability in the enterprise. But here's a really good question. So what are the specific warning signs that network visibility and control might be lacking within a digital infrastructure?
So the big one I get all the time is around performance. Why is my page load times not fast enough? So that's the key indicator that triggers a lot of the stuff that we're investigating at the museum, because we have a very high expectation of how our websites should perform. So that's usually the trigger to go do an investigation for us. And for the last discussion, now in the old days, we went to IT first, they handed it over to the security guys, and then maybe we brought in the developers to look at it. Now we're working as a team to try to figure out what's going on. And through observability, a lot of times we see, we identified a DDoS. right? Right in the middle of it. And you can't do that without observability, right? You go look at logs, you're not going to see those logs because they don't exist, right? So that's where observability really helps us.
Yeah.
But that's one trigger. Another trigger would be, how come we can't get things out fast enough? And that's usually around, we don't understand the environment in which we're deploying. So observability helps us. You have to identify all your stones and what's underneath them. And then you can deploy the right application in the right spot and create the right firewall rules, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And without looking at your traffic, you don't know where to put that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
It's a crapshoot.
Yep.
So we're in a much better place today.
Yeah. So Mark, let me ask you the same question, but can you put a bit more of a security spin on it? So what are some of the specific things that you'd see at the network level that are going to alert you to security concerns?
Yeah, I think for one thing, I mean, a lot of it has to do with, a very basic look at, we work with a lot of different kinds of organizations, enterprises and service providers. And I can tell you, it's very interesting to see just how the interaction is between NetOps and SecOps. And a very basic thing that you see is how many joint projects are they working on together? How often do they interact? Are they involved in evaluation of each other's tool sets? So they have that perspective. Sure, security folks know their tool sets, they know what they need, but wouldn't it be interesting to bring in the networking folks to offer a perspective on what that tool set, how they could be complemented for maybe what the network tools are. So that level of interaction is a real great judgment criteria to see how effective you are at bringing in tools and data and expertise from both sides of the equation. Luckily, I know in studying networking staff and security staffs, a good portion of security staff folks come from a networking background or have good networking background. They may have started off in networking and went over to security because of opportunities and better salaries and such, but they have some basic understanding of networking. And that's a real advantage for folks when you're bringing those two teams together. They speak a common language. They understand each other's perspective. That goes a long way to getting people to buy into looking at the same data, using the same tools, working closely together to determine, fight off a threat, to fight a problem, or to strengthen a security posture proactively. And because we hear it all the time. We talk to enterprises and service providers, and we hear, we have to delay this project because we're not ready, or we have limits. Yes, we could do that, but there's a restriction. We hear all these negative terms that are often used when people are analyzing, innovation, or they're trying to up their protection, or they're maybe looking at outside services for help with their protection or their innovation, and that is something that's increasingly common these days.
Yeah.
And so leveraging those tools effectively, again, tool utilization, high cost of TCO, more training than you should be applying. You've got to train people, but they've got to use the tools to put that training into effect. It's like learning a foreign language. If you don't use it, I had 8 years of French in grammar school and high school, and I could barely survive in Paris. So if you don't use it, you lose it. And that results in very high TCO on tools, and again, very ineffective views of what's going on in your network, what's going on across your security posture, what your users are experiencing. Again, all of those things are great indicators that you're not doing so well. And obviously, budget is the ultimate goal, ultimate judge there in terms of you spending too much on certain things. It's a great indicator all the time.
Okay.
So Mark, can I add something?
Sure. Yeah, by all means, Mark.
So in that, what Mark just brought up is that at the museum, our IT staff and our security staff, we actually share the tools. So IT's adopted them to do more proactive maintenance work. So there are precursors in all the tools and through the logs, the network traffic and/or event logs, that there's a precursor to an event. Right. So they're using that now, not only to learn the network, but to do proactive maintenance to prevent the next outage ahead of time. So historically, we were all break fix organizations. So we're kind of moving away from that.
Yeah.
And we're going to do more proactive stuff now. So that's
Yeah.
a big benefit to everything we're talking about.
Yeah. If we drill a little bit into the security aspect of things, what are the particular things people should be looking for on the network at a security level that tell them that they don't have the visibility or the observability that they need?
So east-west movement would be a big one. So where's your data going? Who's getting it? If your data is moving off-site, why? Is the recipient of it legit? That's all stuff through observability. If you're looking at events, you don't see any of that. So
Right.
that's that east-west. Another one is cloud deployments, right? Most everybody's buying into native AWS tools or Azure tools. Those are all event-based. So without traffic flow up there, you don't see what's actually going on. It's something that was brought up earlier. Is AWS performing up to the agreement at the level 1, level 2 stack you're renting, right? Is there any issues there? You're not going to know that by events because they're not going to tell you. So traffic flow, if there's a network problem, you're going to see it. So just expanding into that is a benefit for all of us.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too, is that from a system perspective, threats are anomalies. So the smarter we are, the smarter our systems are at identifying anomalies, the faster they can identify them, the better. And in today's threat world, look at a profile of a lot of threats. Threats don't just come in and just operate in your network and are visible for weeks or months or something. A common threat profile now has somebody coming, a threat coming, doing its thing and getting out very, very quickly, because once they're spotted, they become a target for mitigation. So from that perspective, systems that are very smart and can identify anomalies that much faster. So no matter how fast someone's coming in and getting out, you spot them, you identify them, and you know what to look for when they come back, because they're coming back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this issue of having the network level intelligence, seeing things happening in real time rather than working from logs, or even worse, I was with a customer a couple of weeks ago, and they were trying to understand the security threats on their network by looking at their AWS billing. I mean, that's not a recipe for success. So
Wow.
let's pivot a little bit and talk about if you were, Mike, I'll go to you first on this. If you were working with one of your clients to evaluate an observability tool, what would the key things be that you were looking for?
Integration points with other tools. Could we easily tap into our network infrastructure, whether it be on-prem or in the cloud, to get that single point of data? And then how easy it is to train the staff on how to use it. All those things play together, because again, the key goal is to utilize that data to do mundane tasks, right? So there's a lot of things you can benefit from with a single source of truth, which seems to be a theme in our discussion.
Yeah.
To automate artificial intelligence interactions with all the tools you have. And as Mark brought up, we all have a lot of tools in a toolkit. But without these tools talking to each other and using the same data set, now that always causes a problem and causes unpredictability. So, by doing a lot of this automation with the single source of truth, the predictability is there. And that's what we're all looking for. Because as you know, we don't have enough staff, and we never will in this world that changes every other day.
Right.
So the more AI machine learning we can do, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll come back to the staffing issue at the end of this discussion. It's one of the things that people are asking questions around. But Mark, to you, the same question. If you got pulled into a project by one of your IDC customers and they said, what are the things I should be looking for in a next-gen observability solution? What would you steer them towards?
Well, I think Michael mentioned 3 really good ones there. For one thing, you want a complete spectrum of data available to you. You want as intelligent analytics capabilities as possible. AI, ML are becoming more and more of a baseline, if you would, for the intelligence. Identifying anomalies, root cause analysis, all these takes a lot of intelligence. You don't want your operators having to look at data points in their screen and figuring out themselves, because again, you don't have enough operators, and the operators you have are probably in the midst of becoming experts. So the experts are becoming less and less these days. So from that, and integration with other tool sets, great. I would also emphasize certainly usability. Being able to have multiple teams use the same tools, look at the same data, integrate the data across tools and such. That comes down to usability, because staff they don't have the do you really want to make all your network operators programmers? We've been talking about that for years. The reality is that's throwing good money after bad. They are network operators. Let them do what they want. Let the system supplement what they're doing. And the other thing there is that close ties between analytics and observability to automation. People have automated a lot of repetitive tasks so far, and that's good, certainly saves some time. But the real big payback is bringing more dynamics to the network environment, where you're tying observability and analytics into automated actions, and very precise automated actions. The smarter the analytics, the better the information, the more precise the action that a system could take. You can trust that system to do things. And if you don't trust them, maybe we settle for recommended guidelines for the operator that says, well, here's 3 things you should try. And that gets them to some level until they trust more fully the ability to just hit the go key on a program or a run book or something like that.
Right.
Also, I will make note that in terms of solutions, we talk about technology advancements like complete data and analytics and such, is that we are seeing an increasing reliance on suppliers to provide the kind of expertise and best practices that allows their enterprise customers and service provider customers to do better with what they have. Mike just mentioned it. There are staffing shortages all over the place, expertise shortages. They've got a lot of tools available to them, and they're not making use of the tools that they have. So that supplier, whether it's a service provider, whether it's a solution provider like Gigamon, whether it's a managed service provider, all of these are options for both enterprises and service providers as they look outside for help. So the practical delivery of solutions becomes as important going forward as the technology developments that we see.
It does, absolutely. And, picking up a point that Mike made in his remarks, as you evaluate these tools, you've got to make sure that they integrate with everything else that you've got. I mean, one of the things that we see over and over again is we go into organizations, they have a whole raft of tools. And when you actually start to drill into it, there's massive overlap between those tools on the one hand, and on the other, they just don't play well together. They don't share the same information. So that's one of the things that we certainly strive to do. I mean, we work with over 200 now other vendors at the integration level. So, I mean, that's there for us. And we also make sure that they see the information they need. So it's no longer just north-south, as we've said, it's also east-west. And then within that, you can go to a deeper level, VM to VM, container to container. And then, of course, the encrypted traffic that's there that we've got to have visibility into. So we're coming up on time. I'm going to give each of you 2 gentlemen opportunity for a sort of 60-second closeout. So, Mike, you want to sort of go first with your thoughts on summarizing this?
Yeah, so through observability, we now have the single source of truth, the bandwidth with our staff to do the more important things that historically always get put on the side burner. So not only do I feel I can sleep a little bit better at night, because through automated actions, there's a lot of stuff happening that I don't have to sit there watching myself, which is a big plus. But we have a better understanding of how our network behaves, which is historically we never had before. So now if there's an issue, we know where to exactly go look. We know how to find the answers, and we know how to remediate. So that's all big pluses in observability.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, last word to you.
Yeah, sure. Just a few things that we see common amongst what I would consider to be enterprises and service providers that are making good headway. No one's perfect yet, right? But they're making good headway in terms of visibility and control over their digital infrastructure. I think there's been a strong movement towards unifying the organization. that can be organizational structure, bringing certain teams together. I mentioned DevSecOps movement, that we're seeing in some organizations. But I'll tell you, just as effective and maybe even more effective that I've seen work is the identification of certain champions, people that are willing to champion teamwork, people that are willing to champion the tools that bring these teams together. And those champions can be, highly technical experts that a lot of people have respect for in an organization. Maybe they're upper level managers that command a lot of respect and have a lot of teams working for them, and they do it more by edict. But again, you need some champions, and you need your CIO and your CEO to buy in. Again, those business priorities, those barriers to digital success, those things all work in your favor when you're trying to get the executive team on your side. And along with that unification, streamline the tool set. Leverage data as best you can. You have data in the network, leverage that in security, leverage that in DevOps, leverage that in SRE, and vice versa. There's plenty of information that's floating around. And on high, you have large overarching IT automation efforts, IT operations efforts, IT service management efforts, AI ops. All of these things are looking for contributions from the network, from security, from the development side of the fence. So again, being able to share that data, gain leverage over that data. Automation, I just mentioned it, contributing to larger IT automation projects, bringing more dynamics to the network environment, which traditionally has been quite a static environment. You configure a portion of your network, and unless it breaks, people leave it alone. Well, that's not the ultimate goal of software-defined networking, which we laid out more than a dozen years ago. So we want to bring more dynamics, heightened visibility, heightened control, ties to automation that allows our network environment to be more dynamic, to respond better to new loads that come along, new threats that come along, and we know they're always around the corner, right? Whether it's threats or new loads and such. Move to a proactive stance, again, preventing problems, getting ahead of the game on things, being aware of threats before they become a real problem, identifying them, mitigating them ahead of time, always going to be much more successful strategy than reacting. No matter how fast you react or how good you react or how much your teams work together to react, it's still a reaction.
Yeah.
Prevention is a much stronger way of going.
Yeah, Mark, I feel you going in the direction of zero trust, but we're not going to go there today. But I think you're absolutely right. So I think just to summarize a couple of those last points, getting teams to work together across all the different silos is critical. And one of the key ways to do that is having champions. I mean, this is a top-down problem to make change within any organization. I think we all understand that. Tools, data, all those things are great, but it comes down to people at the end of the day. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Mike, thank you very much for the work you do with the museum on our behalf. Mark, thanks for all your work with us on the analyst side and really helping us understand the industry better. And thank you particularly to the audience for some of the questions that we've had today. So with that, we'll wrap things up. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Martin, Mark, and Michael. Really excellent presentation, excellent discussion. I learned a lot. I know the audience did as well. For more information on anything we talked about today, I encourage you to visit the Handouts tab for some additional information, as well as gigamon.com. And with that, it's now my pleasure to announce the winner of our Amazon $250 gift card prize. This is going to Matt 6 from Oklahoma. Congratulations. We'll reach out to you to deliver your prize. Thanks to everyone who joined us on the webinar today. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.